Good morning, and welcome to Bible in a Year as we go through the Holy Bible from Genesis to Revelation in 365 days. We are going through the New International Version. We're following together also the Adventure Timeline created by Jeff Cavins. My name is Pastor Jay Lutz, and we are continuing in our period of desert wanderings. Remember, I said the Bible is broken up into different sections, as we have the period of desert wanderings right now. We're going to be going through Numbers chapter 16, Deuteronomy chapter 15 to 16, and Psalm 97. Now, in Numbers 16, in today's reading, we read about Korah the Levite and Dathan and Abiram from the tribe of Reuben, who rise up in opposition to Moses and Aaron. And then we see the consequences of this uprising. Deuteronomy chapter 15 and 16, we read about the year of canceling debts, of freeing servants, and what to do with the firstborn animals. Chapter 16 speaks to the 3 annual festivals that the Israelites were all to attend, and it goes through what those 3 festivals are. And then we see details surrounding about appointing judges and what to do about other gods. Lastly, Psalm 97 is another royal psalm. As we've seen so far, several of these we've already done. It's a psalm of enthronement, a psalm of praise to God. All right, let's get started. Numbers chapter 16. Now Korah, son of Izhar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and certain Reubenite, Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab, and On, son of Peleth, became insolent and rose up against Moses. With them were 250 Israelite men, well-known community leaders, who had been appointed members of the council. They came as a group to oppose Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far. The whole community is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is with them. Why then do you set yourselves above the Lord's assembly?" When Moses heard this, he fell face down. Then he said to Korah and all his followers, "In the morning the Lord will show who belongs to him, and who is holy, and he will have that person come near him. The man he chooses, he will cause to come near him. You, Korah, and all your followers are to do this. Take censers, and tomorrow put fire and incense in them before the Lord. The man the Lord chooses will be the one who is holy. You Levites have gone too far." Moses also said to Korah, "Now listen, you Levites. Isn't it enough for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the rest of the Israelite community and brought you near him to do the work of the Lord's tabernacle, and stand before the community and minister to them? He has brought you and all the fellow Levites near himself, but now you are trying to get the priesthood too. It is against the Lord that you and all your followers have banded together. Who is Aaron that you should grumble against him?" Then Moses summoned Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab. But they said, "We will not come. Isn't it enough that you have brought us up out of the land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the desert? And now you also want to lord it over us? Moreover, you haven't brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, or given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards. Will you gouge out the eyes of these men? No, we will not come." Then Moses became very angry and said to the Lord, "Do not accept their offerings. I have not taken so much as a donkey from them, nor have I wronged any of them." Moses said to Korah, "You and all your followers are to appear before the Lord tomorrow, you and they and Aaron. Each man is to take a censer and put incense in it, 250 censers in all, and present it before the Lord. You and Aaron are to present your censers also." So each man took a censer, put fire and incense in it, and stood with Moses and Aaron at the entrance to the tent of meeting. When Korah had gathered all his followers in opposition to them at the entrance of the tent of meeting, the glory of the Lord appeared to the entire assembly. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Separate yourselves from this assembly, so I can put an end to them at once." But Moses and Aaron fell face down and cried out, "O God, God of the spirits of all mankind, will you be angry with the entire assembly when only one man sins?" Then the Lord said to Moses, "Say to the assembly, move away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram." Moses got up and went to Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. He warned the assembly, "Move back from the tents of these wicked men. Do not touch anything belonging to them, or you will be swept away because of their sins." So they moved from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Dathan and Abiram had come out and were standing with their wives, children, and little ones at the entrance to their tents. Then Moses said, "This is how you will know that the Lord has sent me to do all these things, and that it was not my idea. If these men die a natural death and experience only what usually happens to men, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord brings about something totally new, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them with everything that belongs to them, and they go down alive into the grave, then you will know that these men have treated the Lord with contempt." As soon as he finished saying all this, the ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them, with their households and all Korah's men and all their possessions. They went down alive into the grave with everything they owned. The earth closed over them, and they perished and were gone from the community. At their cries, all the Israelites around them fled, shouting, "The earth is going to swallow us all, too." And fire came from the Lord and consumed the 250 men who were offering the incense. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, to take the censers out to the smoldering remains and scatter the coals some distance away, from the censers are holy, the censers of the men who sinned at the cost of their lives. Hammer the censers into sheets to overlay the altar, for they were presented before the Lord and have become holy. Let them be signs to the Israelites." So Eleazar the priest collected the bronze censers brought by those who had been burned up, and he had them hammered out to overlay the altar, as the Lord directed him through Moses. This was to remind the Israelites that no one except a descendant of Aaron should come to burn incense before the Lord, or he would become like Korah and his followers. The next day the whole Israelite community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. "You have killed the Lord's people," they said. But when the assembly gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron and turned towards the tent of meeting, suddenly the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. Then Moses and Aaron went in front of the tent of meeting, and the Lord said to Moses, "Get away from this assembly, so I can put an end to them at once." And they fell face down. Then Moses said to Aaron, "Take your censer and put incense in it, along with fire from the altar, and hurry to the assembly to make atonement for them. Wrath has come out from the Lord. The plague has started." So Aaron did as Moses said, and ran into the midst of the assembly. The plague had already started amongst the people, but Aaron offered the incense and made atonement for them. He stood between the living and the dead, and the plague stopped. But 14,700 people died from the plague, in addition to those who had died because of Korah. Then Aaron returned to Moses at the entrance to the tent of meeting, for the plague had stopped. Here ends our first reading. Our second reading comes from Deuteronomy, chapters 15 to 16. Chapter 15. At the end of every 7 years you must cancel debts. This is how it is to be done. Every creditor shall cancel the loan he has made to his fellow Israelite. He shall not require payment from his fellow Israelite or brother, because the Lord's time for canceling debt has been proclaimed. You may require payment from a foreigner, but you must cancel any debt your brother owes you. However, there should be no poor among you, for in the land the Lord your God is giving you to possess as your inheritance, he will richly bless you, if only you fully obey the Lord your God and are careful to follow all these commands I am giving you today. For the Lord your God will bless you as he has promised, and you will lend to many nations, but will borrow from none. You will rule over many nations, but none will rule over you. If there is a poor man among your brothers in any of the towns of the land that the Lord your God is giving you, do not be hard-hearted or tight-fisted towards your poor brother. Rather, be open-handed and freely lend him whatever he needs. Be careful not to harbor this wicked thought. The 7 years, the years for canceling debt is near, so that you do not show ill will towards your needy brother and give him nothing. He may then appeal to the Lord against you, and you'll be found guilty of sin. Give generously to him and do so without a grudging heart. Then because of this the Lord your God will bless you in all your work and in everything you put your hand to. There will always be poor people in the land. Therefore, I command you to be open-handed towards your brothers and towards the poor and needy in your land. If a fellow Hebrew, a man or woman, sells himself to and serves you 6 years, in the 7th year you must let them go free. And when you release him, do not send him away empty-handed. Supply him liberally from your flock, your threshing floor, and your winepress. Give to him as the Lord your God has blessed you. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you. That is why I give you this command today. But if your servant says to you, I do not want to leave you, because he loves you and your family and is well off with you, then take it all and push it through the earlobe into the door, and he will become your servant for life. Do the same for your maidservant. Do not consider it a hardship to set your servants free, because his service to you these 6 days has been worthy twice as much as that of a hired hand. And the Lord your God will bless you in everything you do. Set apart for the Lord your God every firstborn male of your herd and flocks. Do not put the firstborn of your oxen to work, and do not shear the firstborn of your sheep. Each year you and your family are to eat them in the presence of the Lord your God, at the place he will choose. If an animal has a defect, is lame or blind, or has any serious flaws, you must not sacrifice it to the Lord your God. You are to eat it in your own town. Both the ceremonially unclean and the clean may eat it. If it were gazelle or deer, but you must not eat the blood. Pour it on the ground like water. Chapter 16. Observe the month of Abib, and celebrate the Passover of the Lord your God, because the month of Abib he brought you out of Egypt by night. Sacrifice as the Passover to the Lord your God as animal from your flock or herd at the place the Lord will choose, a dwelling for his name. Do not eat it with bread made with yeast, but for 7 days eat unleavened bread, the bread of affliction, because you left Egypt in haste, so that all the days of your life you may remember the time of your departure from Egypt. Let no yeast be found in your possession in all your land for 7 days. Do not let any of the meat you sacrifice in the evening of the first day remain until morning. You must not sacrifice the Passover in any town the Lord your God gives you, except in the place he will choose as a dwelling place for his name. There you must sacrifice the Passover in the evening, when the sun goes down on the anniversary of your departure from Egypt. Roast it and eat at the place the Lord your God will choose. Then in the morning return to your tents. For 6 days eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day hold an assembly to the Lord your God, and do not work. Count off 7 weeks from the time you begin to put the sickle to the standing grain. Then celebrate the Feast of Weeks to the Lord your God by giving a freewill offering in proportion to the blessings the Lord your God has given you. And rejoice before the Lord your God at the place he will choose as a dwelling for his name. You, your sons, your daughters, your men servants, your maidservants, the Levites in your town, the alien, the fatherless, and the widow living among you. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and follow carefully these decrees. Celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days after you have gathered the produce of your threshing floor and your winepress. Be joyful at your feast, you and your sons and your daughters and your men servants and maidservants, and the Levites, the aliens, the fatherless, and the widows who live in your town. For 7 days celebrate the feast to the Lord your God at the place the Lord will choose. For the Lord your God will bless you in all your harvest, in all the works of your hand, and your joy will be complete. 3 times a year all your men must appear before the Lord your God at a place he will choose, at the feast of unleavened bread, the feast of weeks, and the feast of tabernacles. No man shall appear before the Lord empty-handed. Each of you must bring a gift in proportion to the way the Lord your God has blessed you. Appoint, therefore, judges and officials for each of your tribes in every town the Lord your God has given you, and they shall judge the people fairly. Do not pervert justice and show partiality. Do not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of the righteous. Follow justice and justice alone, so that you may live and possess the land the Lord your God has given you. Do not set up any wooden Asherah poles beside the altar you build to the Lord your God, and do not erect a sacred stone, for these the Lord your God hates. Here ends our second reading, and our final reading comes from Psalm 97, another psalm of praise, a royal psalm. The Lord reigns, let the earth be glad, let the distant shores rejoice. Clouds and thick darkness surround him. Righteousness and justice are the foundations of his throne. Fire goes before him and consumes his foes on every side. His lightning lights up the world. The earth sees and trembles. The mountains melt like wax before the Lord. Before the Lord of all the earth, the heavens proclaim his righteousness, and all people see his glory. All who worship images are put to shame. Those who boast in idols worship him, all you gods. Zion hears and rejoices, and the villages of Judah are glad, because of your judgment, O Lord. For you, O Lord, are the most high over all the earth. You are exalted far above all gods. Let those who love the Lord hate evil. For he guards the lives of his faithful ones and delivers them from the hand of the wicked. Light is shed upon the righteous, and joy on the upright in heart. Rejoice in the Lord, you who are righteous, and praise his holy name. Here ends the reading. Yes, this shows the majesty of God, that we are not to worship images of idols, for God is the God above all gods, who loves and abhors hate. He delivers and he sheds light on the righteous, joy on the upright. And his majesty is so great that lightning lights up the world. The earth sees him and trembles, mountains melt before the Lord our God. And so this is a mighty God that we have, one worthy of all praise. We also see the instructions on canceling debt. Now, every 7 years, there's to be a sort of a mini jubilee that happens with freeing the debt and the slaves. We also hear about how all the firstborns are to be sacrificed and eaten before God, that they are to celebrate the 3 major festivals: Passover, the Feast of Weeks, and the Feast of Tabernacles, which I've talked about earlier. They're to appoint judges, as we see from since the time of Abraham and then later Moses. We see appointing of judges, and this is to help even the load so that the leaders don't get burnt out. And then common sense things like don't put up other worship besides God. God is the only God, and so speaks against that. And lastly, we see Numbers, this uprising with Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And we see 250 other Israelites. And God says, step away from that. You're treading on something that you should not tread on, because Moses and Aaron have been faithful to me, and I will persecute anyone who stands against them. And so we see them get swallowed up by the earth. And this is interesting because, remember, Korah, we've talked about lots of these Psalms being by Korah, but there's only a remnant that's left over after he is swallowed into the earth, him along with Dathan and Abiram. And then we see, because the people still don't get the hint that God is not to be, Aaron and Moses and God are not to be disobeyed, that they continued to be hard-hearted against Moses, and Moses does what any good leader does, is he stands in the stead of his followers and doesn't let all of them die. But yet still a plague goes through and kills 14,700 people. So the people just don't seem to want to listen. They seem to be hard-hearted and hard-headed, and unfortunately they come to a very harsh demise. We see with Korah and Dathan and Abiram being swallowed up into the earth. I pray that we might always try to be soft-hearted, to allow for God to work in and through us, and so that we don't become like these people of Israel, in that we have hardened ourselves toward God, and so then we continue to disobey God, that we might actually soften our hearts, obey God's word, and be in good standing with God in all things. My prayer for you today is that you might, as you go through this Bible in a year with me, that you might grow in the fear and wisdom and understanding of God, and that might guide you in all you do and soften your heart before the Lord. Have a beautiful day.